Good evening, YouTube. Who's your Piper coming at you again from the hotel out on the road. Tonight, the VR to Mexican Piper. I want to say congratulations to him as he has hit his 100th sub. I believe he's over 100 subs now on his YouTube channel. So congratulations, the Mexican Piper. Gonna do a VR to him. First, just want to say thank you to him. Thank you, brother. He dropped a comment on my 100th sub giveaway, and I appreciate your kind words. And so, personal for me to you, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Mexican Piper asked two questions, and I get right to them because the second question will actually take a little more time than the first. But he asked what were maybe our favorite book that we read last year, and I jotted down several. You'll see that I typically read military books, but I'm pretty eclectic in my book list. So let me just run down through these very quickly because I want to get to your second question. One of the books that I read, and by the way, this is not a comprehensive list. This is just a few books that I picked out. The Last Punisher by Ethan Rock. Sniper, Navy SEALs. Crisis of Character by Gary Byrne. That was about the Clinton presidency. Dead Man Running by Duncan McNabb. It's about an outlaw biker in Australia. One of my favorites, not the favorite, but ranked right up there, very inspiring book, Tough as They Come by Travis Mills. I believe he's Staff Sergeant Travis Mills. Dude lives up to that title. Incredible story. Highly recommend that book. Very inspirational. If you just Google him and read his story, there's no way you will not be touched by that story. I read the book 13 Hours. It's about Benghazi and a gripping account of what happened in Libya. Among Heroes by another Navy SEAL, Brandon Webb. Written about friends and people that he worked with. I believe that he served with all of these heroes, and I believe all of these stories are posthumously honored. So again, a very sobering book, but a very inspiring book. Currently, I am reading The Whistler by Grisham, and frankly, it's taken me forever to get through it. I'm not really. It's a time killer. I'm just not really into it. I'm also in the middle of another book. Let me see where it's at here, because this will lead into my favorite book. But I'm reading a book called Abba's Child by Brennan Manning, one of my favorite authors. And I just started this book. I have it here at the hotel, and I really enjoy it. But he wrote a book called The Ragamuffin Gospel, and probably my top book that I read in 2016. So that's my list. So my favorite book, Ragamuffin Gospel, Brennan Manning. This is how you spell his name. This is the book that I'm reading currently. Okay, I'm 4 minutes into this video. I haven't got to the second question yet. The second question, and I really like this question, from the Mexican Piper was, have you ever been to Mexico? And if so, where did you go? What did you enjoy about it? What were some of the things that you saw, etc., etc.? The one and only time that I've been in Mexico, I flew into Mexico City, and I'll come back to that, and then took a bus. I believe it was from the city, because this is about 17 years ago. It was from the city out to Puebla, and I was at the time, I was not a pastor at that time, but I was working in a church, and I led a group down to Mexico to meet up with one of our friends who was working with a church in Puebla, and they were constructing a building, and so it was a construction crew that I led down to kind of help them with that. And man, what a time! Worked our butts off, but loved it. Loved every minute of it. I think I was down there for over a week. It may have been 10 days. I can't remember exactly. It's been a little while ago. And incidentally, that was my first trip outside of the country, outside of the United States. Since then, I have traveled completely around the world. And I mean that in my flights, I have gone literally around the world. But I've been in Canada, Europe, Asia, Southeast Asia, North America, including Mexico, Central America. I've been in the Caribbean, meaning Haiti. I've just been very blessed to travel in different capacities all over the place. So anyways, let me get back to Mexico, because that is the question you asked. So when I was planning this trip, it was 1999. Okay, so I don't know, you look like a pretty young guy, but I think you were alive in 1999, right? But in 1999, as we grew closer to the end of that millennium, the big concern was Y2K. Y2K, what's going to happen when the calendar flips to 2000? And there was this huge concern that computers weren't going to be able to work correctly. Things were going to shut down. Some people, there was radicals out there calling about the end of the world. There was talk about chaos in the streets and uprisings and terrorist events, and this was all taking place as I was planning this trip, and we were trying to think, because we were going to fly out in 2000, and we were trying to think about, okay, what happens if all this is true? And man, we go to get on the plane, and there's nothing, there is no planes to go, because the computer chip or whatever doesn't work. Of course, as we know, everything turned out fine, and we flew into Mexico City. And I'll never forget, there are several places that I've been in the world that have left very strong impressions in my mind, and I will never ever forget flying into Mexico City. I was sitting on the left side of the plane. I had a window seat, and I was behind the wing. I remember this very clearly, because as we were coming into the city, it seemed to me like the city kind of was set down. It was like recessed, and like mountains surrounded it. Or maybe it wasn't mountains, but maybe it was just hills. But as we banked, I remember seeing the city, and as we descended, I remember just like a heavy smog across the city. It was very, like, almost brown. The air was brown. And I am from a very rural area, and so anytime I've been in the city, I've always been drawn to that, and really have wanted to pay attention. But we landed. Now this is so funny, because this is all pre 9/11, and all these things. And so one of the things I was carrying was, believe it or not, I was carrying a lawnmower. It was a checked bag. It was a lawnmower in a box, like from Sears. I had my luggage, my backpack that I travel with, and then this big cardboard box with a lawnmower in it, because we wanted to gift this to this Mexican pastor. And I remember as the leader of the group, I cleared customs first. And in the airport where we were at that time, there was like these frosted glass doors, the gates that would open up that would allow you out into the street, out into that area where the people would gather for their loved ones as you got off the plane. I'm trying to hurry here. But I remember I was the first one in the group. I don't speak any Spanish. And the frosted gates opened up, and I stepped through, and several things were very, very clear in my mind. Number one was the noise. It was so loud, just this onslaught of noise, a cacophony of horns and diesel trucks and buses and cars and people. And I remember stepping out, and the doors closing behind me, and I realized that I was not in the majority any longer. Very clear in my mind. And I remember looking for our friend who I had not met before. Was a friend of the church. He was a missionary, and I knew his name, but I didn't know what he really looked like. And this is all, before days that we were involved with Facebook and all this stuff. So it's kind of, you got to really think back. And I see a lot of Mexican folks that were standing there that were waiting for their family members, I'm presuming, coming off the plane. And I look up, and here comes this missionary, and he was a tall guy, but here he comes, Caucasian guy, walking towards me, cowboy boots, and I was like, this has got to be my guy. So I walked up to him. Sure enough, it was the guy that we needed to make contact with, and we got on the bus, and I remember riding over to Puebla. And if I'm not correct, and I hope I'm correct with my geography of your country, because I love your country. It's a beautiful country. But I think we had to pass from one state to the next, if I'm not mistaken. We went through like a toll booth, what I would call a toll booth. And I remember seeing young men, like I would call them teenagers, but they had fully automatic rifles. They were milling around this area. I remember sitting on the bus thinking, this is different. This is different. And this was my first international trip. Since then, I've seen many, many other things, and this would not have even caused an increase in my heart rate at all. But this was something new to me, and I was just like, wow, this is different. Made it to Puebla, no problems whatsoever. We did our work. However, one of the things I really enjoyed, and you ask about things that that we enjoyed, gosh, this has been true in every country that I've gone to. I have always tried to sample and eat at the street vendors, because man, that is legit food right there, right? And we were told early on, that our soft bellies could not handle street food. We had to eat the safe food, don't drink the water. That was just pounded into us all week long. And near the end of the week, I was working with the missionary and two other fellows in our group. We were wrapping up a project, and we sent the other group back to the place where we were staying. And we actually missed dinner because we were waiting to let some concrete set up so that we could brush it. And so we got ready to leave, and the missionary said, hey, let's just grab something to eat. And I was all about, I was like, yeah, man, let's do this. And so we found a street vendor, and he was cooking in a fire, kind of over a galvanized trash can with a grate on it, and he was cooking up some meat. I can't remember now what it was. Had a table or two out there in front of his, I think it's called tienda. I'm not sure, and I don't want to mess that up, but. So we sat down, the missionary ordered us whatever it was, and we sat down and we ate it, and I was blown away, loved it. And so we get about 2/3 of the way through this meal, and I am so happy. This is what I wanted to experience. I wanted to experience culture. And I asked the missionary, I said, man, how long have you been eating here? How did you know, is this safe food? And he's like, I've never eaten here before in my life. He goes, I don't know if it's safe or not. And I was like, oh, no, that was this new guy in a new country. I was like, oh, my word, I'm going to get sick. But I didn't. Just tremendous food. Loved it. Tasted so good. The fruit was incredible as well. But anyways, man, that's my recollections of your country. I've only been there one time. It's a beautiful country, beautiful people, and I have a very special spot in my heart for the Mexican people. Just because of the first time that I was able to travel outside of the country, and it opened up a future to me that allowed me the adventurous spirit that has taken me all over the world. And so I owe a great debt of gratitude to Mexico, man. So, anyways, hey, I've gone on long, 15 minutes. Got to cut it. I got to cut it off here. So, congrats on your subs. I'm getting ready to sneeze. Congrats on your subs, Mexican Piper. I really appreciate your videos. Thanks for commenting on mine as well. Until next time, who's your piper?